You know, in the entire history of rock music, you'd be hard-pressed to find a bigger paradox than the band Yes. On one hand, they're the guys who wrote these 20-minute-long, mind-bending symphonic epics. But on the other hand, they're also responsible for one of the biggest, catchiest pop hits of the entire 1980s. So how on earth does one band do both? How do you become a prog rock legend and a pop icon? Well, that's exactly what we're going to figure out.
I mean, just look at this. How does the same band that created the surreal fantasy world on the left, the very look and feel of their classic 70s albums, also create the sleek, shiny, MTV-ready anthem represented on the right? How do you get from point A to point B? Well, the answer is a wild story of constant reinvention, and it all started with a simple but unbelievably ambitious idea.
All right, so to figure out how Yes could pull off such a massive shift, we've got to rewind way back to the beginning, London in the late 60s, to look at the band's founding mission. Because it turns out, this idea of constant change, it was baked right into their DNA from the get-go.
So picture this. It's 1968. We're in a club in Soho, London. A singer named John Anderson bumps into a bassist named Chris Squire. They get to talking and boom! They realize they shared this exact same, pretty revolutionary vision to take rock music and push it way, way beyond the simple 3-minute single.
So what was this big idea? Okay, imagine taking the beautiful, complex vocal harmonies of a group like Simon and Garfunkel, but then you smash that together with instrumental skills that were just on another planet compared to most pop music at the time. Their goal was to create something totally new, a sound they decided to call symphonic rock.
And this was the crew, the original 5 guys who were gonna make it happen. You had John Anderson's soaring vocals, Chris Squire playing the bass like a lead guitar, and Bill Bruford on drums laying down this incredibly complex foundation. And get this, they holed up in the basement of the Lucky Horseshoe Cafe for a month, just hammering out this new sound.
So that founding vision, it was powerful, for sure. But it wasn't quite there yet. A couple of key changes to the lineup would push the band to its absolute peak. This next era would define them forever, and the masterpiece they created, well, it almost broke them.
Before we dive in, let's just get on the same page about this symphonic rock thing. It's not just, throwing some violins on a rock track. No, it's about using the structures of classical music, long songs with different movements, tricky time signatures, and demanding insane technical skill from the players. It's about building these huge sonic worlds, and yes, they were about to become the undisputed masters.
So, 2 new guys show up, and they are absolute game changers. First, Steve Howe on guitar. This guy could play anything, classical, jazz, blistering rock, you name it. Then Rick Wakeman comes in on keyboards. He's this classically trained wizard who shows up with a literal fortress of synthesizers. Suddenly the band had the power of a full orchestra, and just like that, you have the classic Yes lineup.
And the way they recorded their masterpiece, Close to the Edge, was just insane. Their producer, Eddie Offord, helped them build an entire world. They literally built a stage inside the studio to get a live drum sound. They made these massive 40-foot-long tape loops of birds and rivers for atmosphere. The music got so complicated, they had to record every single practice session, otherwise they'd literally forget what they wrote the day before. Wild.
But that kind of perfectionism, it takes a toll. Drummer Bill Bruford put it bluntly. He said the whole process was torturous. Imagine that. Every single note was basically put on trial. They debated and argued over everything. And yeah, all that fighting created a masterpiece, but it was so draining that the second the album was done, Bruford was out. He just walked away.
And in the middle of all this creative chaos, the guys are also inventing new tech. Check this out. Chris Squire, the bassist, he actually rewired his own bass so it sent out 2 signals. The low notes went to a proper bass amp, but the high notes, he sent those to a cranked-up, distorted guitar amp. The result was the signature, gnarly, growling tone that let the bass be both an anchor and a lead instrument. But the sound was only half the story. The final, crucial piece of the puzzle was all about the visuals. This is where the artist Roger Dean comes in. He's the guy behind those incredible, surreal album covers, the floating islands and alien landscapes. He designed that iconic bubble logo, too. And he even built their stage sets, so going to a Yes show felt like you were literally walking into one of his paintings. He created the entire Yes world.
Well, you know what they say, what goes up must come down. That same unbelievable intensity that drove them to create a masterpiece, it was also the very thing that was about to tear them apart. And what came next was a total, shocking reinvention.
So flash forward to 1979. They're in Paris trying to make a new record. But the music world outside had totally changed. Punk and new wave were stripping rock back to its essentials, and this created a massive split. Anderson and Wakeman wanted to go in a lighter direction, while Squire and the others wanted to rock harder. The two sides just couldn't agree, and the whole thing imploded. Anderson and Wakeman just up and left.
And look, this wasn't just a couple of guys leaving the band. This was a complete reset of their entire philosophy. The 70s Yes on the left was all about those long, mystical epics. The Yes that was about to be born in the 80s, on the right, was all about tight, modern pop songs built with digital samples. We're talking two completely different worlds.
But then, there's a twist in the story. After the split, Squire and drummer Alan White started a new band called Cinema, with his brilliant South African guitarist and pop producer named Trevor Rabin. They had a super modern, catchy sound. Well, they play their demos for John Anderson, and he loves it so much that he joins. And just like that, poof, Cinema became the new Yes.
And the result of this reinvention? The band's one and only #1 single in America. Yep, Owner of a Lonely Heart. It was built around a Trevor Rabin demo, it was packed with cutting-edge digital sampling, and it sounded like absolutely nothing Yes had ever done before. And there you have it. That's the answer to the question we asked right at the start.
So, Yes had somehow managed to transform from symphonic titans into pop superstars. But this legacy of constant change, it started to create a whole new set of questions about the band's identity. An identity crisis that honestly still follows them around today.
Just to give you an idea of how much change we're talking about, over their 50-plus-year history, the band has had 19 official members come and go. I mean, the lineup has basically been a revolving door from the very beginning. It actually makes you think of that old philosophical puzzle, the ship of Theseus. The question is, if you take a ship and, over time, you replace every single piece of wood, is it still the same ship at the end? And that is the ultimate question about Yes, because at certain points, the band carried on with few, and eventually 0 original members.
In fact, it got so fractured that at a couple of points in their history, there were literally 2 different versions of Yes touring and recording at the same time. You had these competing factions, each one claiming they were the real heir to the legacy. But here's the thing, no matter who was actually in the band at any given time, you just can't deny their impact. I mean, we're talking over 30 million albums sold, a Grammy Award, a long overdue induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and a legacy that has influenced countless bands from Rush to Dream Theater.
Which all comes down to this one last question, really. What actually is a band? Is it the specific people who play the instruments? Or is it the spirit, that core mission of fusing virtuosity with melody that can be passed down and reinterpreted for over half a century? For Yes, it seems the only thing that was constant was change.